Excited to be joined now by Phoenix Mercury Associate Head Coach Kristi Toliver. Many more titles I could give you, and we'll get to some of those, Kristi. Have some questions about your coaching journey, WNBA, NBA, the tournament, all sorts of good stuff. But first, we have a little segment we like to do on the show. We call it basketball speed dating. It's a little bit of an overly familiar phrase there, but the point being the types of things you would want to know about somebody from a basketball standpoint if you wanted to really get to know them quickly. That's the idea. I only have two for you. Is that an okay place to start?
That's fair.
All right. Your first favorite player ever when you were a kid hooping for the first time, who is the player that you look up to or you modeled your game after or you just liked watching?
The first one would be Michael Jordan. It was the 90s and he was the guy. I think that's the be like Mike. That's what every kid had that poster. Everybody wanted to be like that guy. And for me, it was just the same.
Okay, and then could be the same answer. Sometimes it is. The first jersey you ever got?
Ooh. That's a little tougher. Honestly, I don't know. And what's crazy is I have like a jersey collection because throughout the course of my life, I've just collected. And so I probably have 40 or 50 jerseys, in my closet. But I honestly, I couldn't tell you what the first one was. Probably Michael, but I don't know for sure. Maybe a Kevin Johnson jersey, actually, because he was one of my favorites growing up.
All right, there we go. A little full circle now with the Phoenix connection there then. And I believe that is a Michael Jordan poster behind you. So I guess maybe I should have expected that might be your answer on the first question. But all right, let's jump over to where you're at. You made some headlines or whatever you want to say early on when you first got into coaching, jumping into the NBA the way that you did, being in Washington and everything else. But did you always know way back then or even before that, as your coaching career kind of continued while you were still playing, did you know coming back to, sounds kind of funny, but that you wanted to be a WNBA coach? Did you figure it might happen in the NBA longer than it did? Did you have any expectations there? And then as an offshoot of that, how did the opportunity in Phoenix come together to make that move?
Yeah, I mean, I never had any true intention of coaching. It's a question that as players we always get asked of what are you going to do after basketball? And so that's kind of when I didn't have a direct answer, but I knew whatever it was, I wanted to stay involved in the game in whatever capacity that was. And then getting the job in DC kind of just came up, I don't want to say accidentally, but through connections and just knowing people and being in the gym. I just was wishing well. A guy that went to Maryland with us, coached there. He was about to become a front of the bench coach for the Wizards, so I wanted to congratulate and all that. And then some guys left on the staff. He was like, "Well, you ever want to be an assistant? Like, you want to do it?" I was like, "Yeah," just in a passing by. And then things unfolded that summer, and they had a position open, and they held true to it. So given that being my first real coaching experience, it was eye-opening, but it was also a lot of a smoother transition than kind of what I thought. I didn't really have many expectations because I just didn't really know what I was walking into other than being the player where I'm being told the scouting reports and the walkthroughs and the practices and the drills and stuff like that. I think it was just kind of a smoother transition because I could relate to the players and I'd been in that room my entire life in some capacity. And so then, going there, then working with the Mavs, another great experience. And then last season, I was planning on it being my last one regardless. Dealing through injury, I kind of thought midway through the summer of like, maybe I'm going to take a year and really get healthy and play one more season. And then towards the end of the year, 4 games left, I tear my ACL and meniscus after getting back. So that kind of circle of event is kind of what led me to Phoenix. Just kind of making the decision of stepping away from playing, given my physical state. And yeah, and then, the phone started ringing, and I'm glad I answered this call.
What were your conversations like with Phoenix? Obviously, a whole top to bottom change really on everything here. GM, I say here, I'm based in Phoenix, obviously. GM, coach, ownership a little while before that. Now the roster got a lot of upgrades. At what point, I guess not at what point, I know at what point, but who did you hear from first? What was kind of the pitch, and what have your conversations been like with Nate? Obviously, a coach who has a lot of experience, but new to the women's game and has talked through his approach there. What do you feel like you bring to the table, and what did they want you to bring to the table as those conversations developed?
Yeah, obviously the first conversations kind of go through the agents, and then we get in contact, and um, yeah, just talking with Nate, the first time, never met him before. Obviously, in the NBA, we've seen each other from a distance, but we just didn't have a connection on that level, in that setting. But our connection was immediate as soon as we got on the phone. I think he's excited for the opportunity. I think this is a perfect position for me to be in, given what just transpired in the last year. 14 years of WNBA playing experience, so just knowing the league, knowing the players, kind of knowing the routine, and how things kind of go about. To me, it's a great match. He's a great guy. He's fun to be around. He's fun to work with. You never know when you go in and something's brand new if things are going to click and connect, and we have from the jump. So, I know things that he wants from me, locking into the offensive side of the ball. Making sure we're getting our playmakers in the right positions to be successful. Certainly player development. That's something top to bottom. Nate even leads the way in that, of everybody working with everybody, really being hands on and engaged with the players. But yeah, I think we're just excited, and we're aligned. We have the same vision for what this organization wants to get back to. I played against these Mercury teams in the past, and it was always a beast. It was always challenging, and it's a winning franchise. So obviously, the goal for us as a unit is to help do whatever we can to get back in that position.
It felt natural when I saw the news come down that you were joining the organization, given the things Nate's been open about. He's new to this side of the game and new to this city, new to these players. You're going to be able to kind of thread that needle, I think, in a cool way that you don't often see that type of balance on a coaching staff, and I think it can be a strength. But question being, since you were brought on board, this roster has continued to evolve. What are you most excited about, given the group that you guys have? We're a month or so away from camp at this point. What excites you the most about what you guys are going to be able to do together on the court?
Yeah, I think we have a nice blend of players. Obviously BG and Diana having their relationship for over a decade together. Now you bring in two kids from Philly, and Natasha Cloud and Copper. Dogs on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. The Rebecca Allens and the Sophie Cunningham's ability to shoot the three. I think we're going to have fun with the diversity. We're going to be smaller, but I think that's a style that we're embracing and okay with, as far as just getting up and down, scoring the ball, shooting the three, using BG intelligently. She looks great. I'm really, really excited for her this season, to really show herself and reveal who she is and kind of remind people. I think she's ready to have an MVP type of caliber season because of the MVP type of work that she's done, this off season. So I'm really excited for her. But we'll have a fun group. We're going to get after it defensively. That's why we brought the people in that we did, and offensively, we're going to move it around, and gonna share it and shoot it and get up and down. So I think it's gonna be a fun style for them to play and embrace. Like all things, when you're with new people, it's gonna take time to develop and learn and build that chemistry, and that's fine. I think we have the intelligence and the IQ to speed that process up.
All right, switching gears a bit, we have three ACC teams left in the tournament. I'm sure you are more than happy to represent, although Maryland unfortunately did bow out a bit early. But who do you have your eye on team-wise? Any standout types of moments, expectations for this Sweet 16 slate? Just what's your kind of 30,000-foot scouting report of those three squads as they try to continue on to another weekend here?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've watched all three of them extremely close throughout the course of the year. But obviously Notre Dame, I love their freshmen. I love their head coach. I love all freshmen in tournaments. I think it's just their pristine opportunity to be themselves and shine on the biggest stages. So I always watch for the freshmen, and they have a heck of a one with Notre Dame. Duke, I'm happy for Kara Lawson and the Blue Devils, as much as it hurts as a Terp to say that. I
heck of a win, though.
Yeah, a heck of a win. And then NC State kind of just always hangs around. Like, they're just one of those teams where, like, the beginning of the year they had these high expectations, and they kind of had a drop off, and now they're kind of peaking at the right moment again. So, no, we didn't play Notre Dame in college, but, every time we went to NC State, every time we went to Duke, it was always really fun environments, and obviously happy for both of those programs.
So this is random, but it just so happens, scheduling wise, that this episode of the show that you're going to be on also features Tamika Catchings. And I had the opportunity to ask her about winning a championship as a freshman, because she kind of brought up a similar point to you. You were able to do the same thing. What is the key to being able to elevate your game despite being a younger part of a group, and obviously getting the march and being able to carry that on, which is not an easy task for anybody, let alone somebody who probably still feels like a kid in a lot of ways? What was your mentality back then to execute at that highest level?
Yeah, well, I think for us, we were, as a team, pretty young. So I wasn't like the isolated freshman by myself.
Sure.
So we kind of did it as a unit. We did it together. And there was, like, for us specifically, just a level of joy in, like, this spirit, like this youthful spirit in us. And I think that's what kind of made us overcome. That season, we had 6 overtime wins that year. So, like, we were kind of built for that moment. And, like, throughout the course of the ups and downs of the season, and being true freshmen to, obviously, towards the end of the year, nobody's a freshman anymore. But you really just, earn for those opportunities to shine on the biggest stage. And I think not only myself, but I had a locker room full of, teammates that felt the exact same way and wanted to be their best when it mattered most. And we just had great support for one another throughout that whole season, and obviously, especially in Boston.
All right, so jumping to some of the experiences you had as a player that I definitely want to ask about before we wrap. The Mystics team you were a part of, in my opinion, you kind of you have to call it one of the defining teams of this era, just in the way you guys kind of changed how offense is played, and were one of the first teams to really spread it out and move the ball the way that a lot of groups are emulating now. Kind of coincidental that you and Natasha are both going to be here, but I guess in particular, I have a worry, I have a concern that, given how private Elena can be, we're not going to get to say a goodbye to her the way that we might want to. I'm not saying that's happening yet. I know she's taking this season and reevaluating, but what can you say about the way you guys came together as a group, and the great things you accomplished, and the offensive firepower you were able to put together playing together, and obviously what she was able to do as an MVP and really the focal point of that?
Yeah, I think, going there, Deli and I going there at the same time, to win a championship and 3 years is not easy to do, and it's a chance that both of us took, leaving our respected cities. I just came off of winning a championship in LA the season before, um, but I think we just had a unique unit where we were kind of in it together. We wanted to make this decision of, in the next 3 years, this is what we want to accomplish, and we just went through the process. In 2018, losing to Seattle in the finals, that obviously hurt. Um, and I think it was exactly what we needed. We were still young as a group. I was the only person on the team that had even played in the championship game before, other than Dele. Um, so there's just a level of inexperience. And so, the fact that we got to experience the finals and what it tasted like in 2018, and then stayed motivated throughout the course of the off season. Our theme all off season was run it back, and everybody was excited and eager to get our opportunity to be in the finals again. And once we were able to do that the next season, in terms of our style of play, I think that was the separator. And honestly, Seattle was kind of like the mirror of that, with Stewie and Howard and, Bird the year before. We kind of got a taste of our own medicine as well. So I think just throughout the process of us in those 3 years, just trusting it, continuing to share, staying connected, that was a separator from 18 to 19 as far as just gaining that experience.
Do you see the league continuing to trend in that direction? There's so many dominant post players that I think that's always the question everybody wants the answer to. Maybe the answer is everybody's going to do their own thing, but do you feel like we're going to get more and more groups that played how you guys did, play how it feels like the championship teams of the past few years would tell you that's kind of where this is all going? But then you have an Aaliyah Boston who goes out and does what she does. Where are you there? And are we going to see it go in the direction of the NBA where, everybody is spaced out and playing lightning fast and doing all of that?
Yeah, I think the game's definitely changed where, 1 through 5, everybody's it's universal. You don't see as many traditional point guards anymore or traditional bigs. As that's phased out in the NBA, it's kind of phasing out right now in the W. But it just all depends on your personnel, right? You have Boston and Indiana. We have BG in Phoenix. The Dallas Wings, they're a pretty big team. So, they're not, it's not just like it's evaporated, but I think just the overall style and the position list of players and the skill sets that players have will definitely alter, probably how the game's played moving forward.
Okay, so this one we'll close on, and it's a sore subject. If anybody from Phoenix is tuning in here to hear about the Mercury and has some Suns fandom in their heart as well, but you were obviously in the building for a particularly strong and negative memory for a lot of Suns fans, but we're not going to get into that game specifically. I just am curious getting to see a player like Luka Doncic. What makes him special? What makes him unique that maybe the average fan might not pick up on? Because he doesn't do a ton of interviews. He can just feel like this robot, I think, at times that comes and kills your team. Getting to be around a young player at that point in his career the way that you were, what stood out getting to see that up close about what sets him apart?
Yeah, Luka is extremely special. The joy that he has and that he plays with, I think, is a separator. His competitiveness, I don't think people even understand how competitive this guy is. I would say it's aiming towards Michael Jordan level of competitiveness, because it's everything. It's dominoes, it's cards, it's obviously the game. Super, super competitive. And obviously his skill set. He's just special with the size that he has and the skills. Scoring the basketball, obviously passing the basketball. He's extremely gifted, foundationally sound, just extremely unique, and so to watch him up close every single day for 2 years, even just in those 2 years, I saw a lot of growth in him, because his growth isn't necessarily what he does on the court, because that's been pretty consistent and he can do that any night. But just his overall maturity, even just watching it from afar now, watching the games and kind of seeing the interviews, and his demeanor has changed. You know, the way he communicates with the officials has changed. So he's grown up a lot. I think some of it's probably because he's a dad now. He's Papa Luka now. Um, you know, him just and his wife, you know, starting that beautiful family. I think he's just in such a good place off the court that on the court he really gets to show himself. But he's one of one. I don't think I'll see a guy like him ever again.
Yeah, it's probably, very similar to how people maybe felt about a Michael or other guys like that at various points, where you're around it, you're on his side, you love it. Otherwise, maybe less so. But no, I'm glad. I figured you would have something there, and I was gonna bring up, yeah, he's a dad. Maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe that flips a switch in all of us that we're not ready for. But I don't think it's gonna turn off the whatever that is in him that just goes. But it definitely maybe it's smoothed it over a little bit. But thank you very much, Kristi. I really appreciate the time, and we're looking forward to a fun Mercury season. I know the crowd will be ready for you guys to come out and show off all the new additions.
Yeah, best crowd in the WNBA. Thank you for having me.